Are you exhausted and rest isn't helping? Have you stopped caring about your work you used to love? Are you going through the motions and nobody knows? This is for you. Welcome back. This is Dr. Grandma B, Dr. Bachmeyer's avatar. Tell me if you ever experienced this. You've been running on fumes, and some part of you is starting to wonder if something is actually wrong. Not just tired, not just overwhelmed, something that feels heavier and more persistent than that. You are in exactly the right place. Today we are talking about burnout, what it actually is, what the science says about how it develops, and what you can genuinely do about it. Not the advice you've already tried, the real picture. Are you just done? Tired? Fog brain? I want to share something a viewer sent me recently. She wrote, I used to love my job, genuinely. Now I sit in the parking lot for 10 minutes before I can make myself go inside. I'm not sad exactly, I'm just gone. And the worst part is nobody can see it because from the outside, everything looks fine. I want to sit with that for a second because she just described the inside of burnout more accurately than most clinical definitions manage to. The goneness, the parking lot minutes stretching from 10 to 20, the performance of fine when there's nothing left inside it. If that lands for you, if you have your own version of that parking lot, that is exactly why we're here today. Burnout is not a new idea. What's new is how thoroughly we've documented it. In 2019, the World Health Organization officially recognized burnout as an occupational phenomenon in the International Classification of Diseases, ICD 11. That recognition matters. It means we are no longer operating in the realm of maybe you're just not tough enough. We're in the realm of documented, measurable, and real. The research goes back over 4 decades, anchored in the foundational work of Christina Maslach and colleagues, whose 2001 review in the Annual Review of Psychology gave us the first rigorous, reproducible framework for what burnout actually is. That framework changed how the field understood chronic workplace stress. Here is the story most of us start with. You are competent, you care about your work, you are reliable, the person others count on when things get complicated. For a while, sometimes a long while, you sustain that. The demands are high, but you meet them. You feel effective. That is the ideal version. Now, here's the messy reality. At some point, gradually and then faster, the demands start exceeding what you have to give. Not because you've changed, because the structure hasn't. Workloads increase, resources stay flat or shrink. The things that once made the work meaningful get buried under things that feel meaningless. And you keep going because people are depending on you, because stopping feels worse than continuing, until continuing starts to feel impossible. That gap between what your work demands and what you have to give back is where burnout lives. Let me give you the actual psychological architecture of burnout, because this is where precision matters. Maslach, Schalfely, and Leiter defined burnout as a three-dimension syndrome emerging from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. 3 dimensions, not one. And most people only know the first. Dimension 1, emotional exhaustion. Not I need a nap tired. A depletion so complete that rest doesn't actually reach it. You sleep 8 hours and wake up just as empty. That's the flag. Dimension 2, cynicism. Emotional disconnection from your work, your clients, the people you once genuinely cared about serving. You go through motions. You become someone you don't quite recognize. Dimension 3, reduced sense of personal efficacy. Your belief in your own competence begins to erode. You second guess decisions you once made automatically. You feel ineffective even when the results say otherwise. The mechanism behind all 3 dimensions is what Schauffele and Bacher formalized in their 2004 Job Demands Resources Model. Every work environment involves two categories: demands, the things that cost you, and resources, the things that sustain and replenish you. When demands persistently outpace resources, burnout develops, not from one hard week, from structural imbalance that doesn't correct. The model is important because it shifts the focus exactly where it belongs, not to what's wrong with you, but to what's wrong with the equation. Let me tell you what the research actually shows, because it is more specific than most burnout content acknowledges. Leiter and Maslach, in their 2016 study in burnout research, used statistical profiling to identify 5 distinct burnout patterns in working populations. Not everyone burns out the same way. Some are primarily exhausted, still engaged, still caring, but running on nothing. Some are primarily disengaged, functionally competent, but emotionally gone. Some have lost efficacy, while the other dimensions remain manageable. And some have all 3 dimensions fully activated. Why does this matter? Because the path back looks genuinely different depending on where you are. Recovery from exhaustion looks different from recovery from disengagement. One size answers don't fit a 5 profile problem. On the distinction between burnout and clinical depression, and this matters both clinically and practically. Maslach and Leiter's 2016 review in World Psychiatry established that burnout is context specific. It originates in the work environment. Energy and engagement may remain available in other areas of life. Depression, by contrast, is pervasive. It crosses all life domains. The loss of capacity for pleasure doesn't stay at the office door. These conditions can coexist. Identifying which you're dealing with determines which kind of help will actually work. If you're uncertain, that question belongs with a licensed clinician, not a YouTube video. Here's the part most wellness content skips, and I'm going to say it plainly because you deserve the honest version. Burnout does not resolve itself. Waiting it out is not a strategy. And rest, as genuinely necessary as it is not recovery. Rest removes you temporarily from the source of the demand. A vacation, a long weekend, a leave of absence. These interrupt the acute exhaustion. That part is real and valuable, but they do not change the underlying structure that produced the burnout. If you return to the same role, the same demands, the same missing resources, without anything structurally different, you will be in the same place within weeks, sometimes days. The 2023 systematic review by Cohen and colleagues found that individual level coping interventions produced limited sustained improvement. Organizational level change produced the most durable outcomes. Individual coping on top of a broken system buys you time. It does not buy you recovery. I want to describe what burnout actually looks like from the inside. Not the clinical definition, but the lived texture of it. Because recognizing yourself in this picture is its own kind of turning point. In the early stages, it looks like just being tired. You tell yourself you need a weekend, a vacation, a slower month. You get the vacation, you come back, and the exhaustion was waiting for you, exactly where you left it, as if nothing had changed, because structurally, nothing had. Then something shifts in how you relate to the work itself. Tasks that once engaged you start to feel hollow. You can still do the work, competently even, but the connection to why it matters has gone quiet. That is the cynicism dimension activating. You find yourself performing engagement rather than feeling it. Then the efficacy piece, the slow erosion of confidence in your own judgment. Decisions that once came quickly start taking longer. You feel like you are performing capability rather than actually having it. And here's what makes burnout uniquely isolating. From the outside, everything often looks fine. You're still showing up, still delivering. Nobody can see the hollow task completion, the parking lot minutes, the quiet erosion happening underneath a completely intact looking surface. So, here is where we are. You understand what burnout is and how it develops. You understand that rest alone won't fix it. The honest question that follows from all of that is, what will? And I want to give you a real answer, not a self care checklist, not a boundary setting platitude. 5 strategies with actual research behind them. Strategies that address burnout at the level where burnout actually lives. Strategy 1: name it accurately. Not I'm stressed, not I'm just tired. If the 3 dimension model fits your experience, sustained exhaustion, emotional withdrawal from work, eroded efficacy, call it burnout. Precise labeling matters psychologically. It reduces the ambient shame that comes from experiencing something you can't name. It creates the cognitive distance you need to address the problem rather than just survive inside it. Sit down and rate yourself on each dimension from 1 to 10. That rating is your baseline. Without a baseline, you cannot track change. V09. Strategy 2: the demands and resources audit. Get a piece of paper. Draw a line down the middle. Left side, every significant demand in your current role: workload, emotional labor, time pressure, unclear expectations, values conflicts, loss of control. Right side, every genuine resource: autonomy, support, clear feedback, growth opportunities, meaningful community, sense of purpose. Look at the imbalance on the page. It moves the problem from a felt sense to a concrete map. It tells you whether the most urgent conversation is about reducing demands or restoring resources. Strategy 3: protect recovery time and mean it, not as a reward for productivity, as a non negotiable structural commitment. The research on sleep and burnout shows a bidirectional relationship. Burnout disrupts sleep, and sleep deprivation accelerates burnout. Genuine restoration and numbing are not the same thing. 2 hours of scrolling feels like rest. It is not rest. Recovery time that gets scheduled but not defended is not recovery time. It is an intention that will be canceled. Put it on the calendar like a meeting you cannot move. Strategy 4: reconnect with one source of meaning. The cynicism dimension of burnout creates distance from what originally made your work matter. At exactly the moment when connection to meaning is one of the most powerful protective factors in the research. You don't need a team retreat or a structured wellness program. You need one real conversation with someone in your field or on your team. Not about deliverables, but about the work itself and why it once had meaning for you. Micro reconnection to purpose. That is the specific lever. Strategy 5: advocate for structural change. This is the hardest one and the one most directly supported by the intervention evidence. Have the concrete conversation with your manager or organization. Ask for one specific named change: reduce workload, a genuine resource you've been missing, modification to your role. The research is clear. Organizational level change produces the most durable recovery. Individual coping on top of an unchanged structure has a ceiling. If systemic change turns out not to be possible in your current environment, that is information too. Relevant, important information about whether this role, this organization, or this field is one where you can actually recover. Let me walk through the science one more time, because you deserve to know exactly where this comes from. Maslach, Schofeli, and Leiter, Annual Review of Psychology, 2001, gave us the 3 dimension model that remains the foundational framework across the entire field, still the benchmark against which every subsequent study is measured. Schofeli and Bacher, Journal of Organizational Behavior, 2004, established the job demands resources model in a rigorous multi-sample study, demonstrating that demands and resources are distinct psychological processes, each with different consequences and requiring different interventions. Maslach and Leiter, World Psychiatry, 2016, confirmed the organizational roots of burnout and the critical clinical distinction from depression. Leiter and Maslach, Burnout Research, 2016, gave us the 5 profile model, showing burnout is not a single uniform experience and that different profiles require different recovery approaches. Cohen and colleagues, BMJ Open, 2023, systematic review confirming that organizational interventions produce more durable outcomes than individual coping alone. Showman and colleagues, International Archives of Occupational and Environmental Health, 2023, meta analysis confirming that directly targeting demands and resources produces the most significant reductions in the exhaustion dimension of burnout. Decades of convergent evidence. I want to go back to the viewer in the parking lot, the one who used to love her job and now can't quite make herself go inside. I want her, and everyone sitting in some version of that parking lot, to hear this clearly. You did not get here because something is wrong with you. You got here because something was wrong with the balance between what your work asked of you and what it gave back. That is a human response to a structural problem. It is not a character flaw. Burnout is recoverable, slowly, not linearly, and with changes that are often inconvenient and sometimes frightening, but recoverable. The research says so. Name what's happening. Audit the imbalance. Protect your recovery time. Find one real connection. Ask for what you actually need. And if someone in your life is sitting in their own parking lot, share this because the goneness is far more common than anyone admits, and the people living inside it deserve to know the door isn't locked forever. I want to go back to the viewer in the parking lot, the one who used to love her job and now can't quite make herself go inside. I want her and everyone sitting in some version of that parking lot to hear this clearly. You did not get here because something is wrong with you. You got here because something was wrong with the balance between what your work asked of you and what it gave back. That is a human response to a structural problem. It is not a character flaw. Burnout is recoverable, slowly, not linearly, and with changes that are often inconvenient and sometimes frightening, but recoverable. The research says so. Name what's happening. Audit the imbalance. Protect your recovery time. Find one real connection. Ask for what you actually need. And if someone in your life is sitting in their own parking lot, share this with them because the goneness is far more common than anyone admits, and the people living inside it deserve to know the door isn't locked forever. If this landed for you, subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Drop a comment and tell me which of the 5 strategies you're starting with. I read every one. And if you know someone who needs to hear this today, share it. That's how we make sure the right people find it.